One of my favorite things in exploring is just picking a random 2-lane highway and seeing what I can find. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to check out Missouri Route 58. We're just a little bit south of the Kansas City kind of metro area. I guess this could be like the suburbs. And we're actually not too far from a little actual town, one of the newest towns in Missouri called Loch Lloyd. It's a bit of an exclusive community around a golf course. I think maybe Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City quarterback, lives there. So that's we're not able to explore that because it's a private community slash town. But we're just south of there. We're here at Sneed's Barbecue. They got a great sign, and we're gonna head up east and go about 50 miles. This was one of the original Missouri highways in the 1920s. It's not as well known as like US 50, which we're really close to, which is like a national highway, but this is a more of a state highway or state road. And it was important back in the day because, there were a lot of communities along this, which we'll see. There's like 7 communities in terms of either cities or unincorporated communities, and very different probably from one to the other. So the eastern part was like the original part, and it actually went over to Warrensburg. Now it doesn't go that far. It goes and connects with US 50 at the end of the, I guess you'd say, the eastern terminus. And we're here at the western terminus. So it should be fun to check out and see what we can find in these little communities. So one other thing, I know people that are fans of this channel like my drone footage. And unfortunately, I left home today and forgot my drone. And I live about 3 hours from here, so I'm not going to turn around and go get it. But so no drone footage today. I apologize. I'll make sure never to forget that again. But let's go ahead and get started on Missouri Route 58. As we're rolling into our first town of Belton, the main street is just off of 58, and here is the really interesting historical main street. So before Belton was established, following the sacking of Lawrence, Kansas in 1863 by Quantrill's raiders during the Civil War, the Union commander in Kansas City, Brigadier General Thomas Ewing, issued the infamous Order Number 11, which decreed the depopulation of an area 30 miles wide and 100 miles long south of the Missouri River on the western border of Missouri. The order affected 20,000 people who had to salvage what they could of clothing, personal belongings, and livestock to make a hasty move. Plundering and devastation followed. Union soldiers confiscated horses and wagons, looting was rampant, and torches were set to fields and homes. The area came to be known as the Burnt District, and for 18 months was largely uninhabited and included this area in Belton. Then George Scott and William Colburn purchased 80 acres of land in 1869. They filed a plat for the 80 acres in 1871 and called the new town Belton. It was named for one of Scott's close friends, Captain Marcus Lindsay Belt. The two had served in the Civil War together, and the town was incorporated in 1872. As the recovery began, Belton was served by 2 rail lines. Then St. Louis industrialists came up with a plan for a rail spur that would bypass Kansas City. The rail was built through Belton from Pleasant Hill to eventually DeSoto, Kansas. It's interesting looking at the population figures, as it stayed under 1,000 until 1950, but then shot up dramatically census after census, all the way up to almost 24,000 today. See how close the downtown was to the railroad here. Belton has ties to several high-profile figures. Old West outlaws, the Dalton Gang, started life just south of the city. Harry Truman became a Mason in Belton. Here's the grave of Dale Carnegie. And temperance movement leader Carrie Nation, who used her hatchet to break up saloons in the late 1800s, is buried here. Belton is now home to the Broken Hatchet Brewery. I couldn't find much of a historic downtown area in Raymore, but we'll just drive around and show you what the community looks like. So no Civil War battles were fought in the Raymore area. However, it was used as camping grounds for both the Kansas Jayhawkers and Quantrill's Raiders. Like in Belton, under Order Number 11, all non-unionists had to leave the county and their crops and buildings were destroyed. The Raymore area is part of that burnt district. After the war, people began to return to the area and rebuild. The first post office was called the Hazen Post Office and was believed to be named after Union General William Hazen. Raymore was named after two of its founding fathers, George Ray and Henry Mohr. Both men were involved with building the Kansas City, Clinton, and Springfield Railroad. In 1876, the first school in Raymore was established. The school was in the front room of the teacher's home, which also happened to be the railroad depot. Teaching duties were temporarily set aside when the train pulled into town. For nearly 50 years, 8 trains a day stopped in the Raymore depot on their way to Clinton and Springfield, Missouri. It was a smaller town than Belton until 1980, when it really shot up in population. And being basically a Kansas City suburb, you can see how that explosion in population has taken it all the way up to almost 23,000 today. Pleasant Hill was platted in 1844 by William Wright and was documented as, quote, the original town of Pleasant Hill. The community was named after its pleasant situation on an elevated prairie. It was an overnight stop for stages between Lexington, Missouri and Fort Scott, Kansas. During the Civil War and its run up to it in the 1860s, Pleasant Hill was bitterly divided and was subject to numerous bushwhacking incidents. In 1863, all residents of the area were forced to move from the community in General Order Number 11, like we previously mentioned. In 1865, after residents were able to return, the city center moved 1 mile southwest down the hill to the railhead of the Pacific Railroad. The Pleasant Hill Downtown Historic District was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1994. In 2016, the former Pacific Railroad line, which was later owned by the Rock Island Railroad, was converted to the western terminus of the 47-mile-long Rock Island Trail State Park and connects the rails to trails to the 240-mile-long Katy Trail State Park. See, the population was very steady all the way from its start in 1870 until 1960, and then gradually started to get bigger, and then in recent decades has gotten quite a bit larger, up to over 8,000 today. This is near Baldwin Park, Big Iron Town. Strasburg was originally called Crawford's Fork, and under the latter name was founded in the 1860s. The area was also known as Cause Prairie and Big Creek. The present name is after the city of Strasburg, then in Germany, but now part of France. It was platted in 1870 and incorporated in 1876 with strict stipulations against the sale of alcohol. Population has never been very large. The highest it's ever been was in 1960 with 213 and has lost about half of that population down to 107 today. Kingsville was platted in 1856. The community was named for General William King, an early settler. Post office named Kingsville has been in operation since 1857. Mr. King had come from Alabama in 1852, and after the Civil War in 1865, on account of the strict Southern principles of the King family, there were bitter feelings leading to the burning in effigy of General King and the attempted change of name to Raymore. The new name was never officially adopted, and just as soon as the Democrats had influence in Congress, the name of Kingsville was resumed. Stahl Specialty Company was founded in Kingsville in 1946. Initially producing a narrow range of castings, the company began to branch out in the 60s to include a wide variety of products like those for grills, trucks, and playground equipment. You can see how the population has been very steady from its early days all the way until today, 245. In the fall of 1857, Isaac Jacobs purchased 160 acres of open prairie in Johnson County. Construction on the Missouri Pacific Railway had already reached Jefferson City, and workers were steadily laying tracks westward across the state. In 1858, Jacobs went to Jefferson City to petition the state for a depot in his newly platted town. By 1859, a handful of homes, businesses, a school, and a hotel had been built in the little town. The town's namesake, Major Nathaniel Holden, came to the Johnson County area in 1839 as a school teacher and joined the Missouri State Legislature. Holden was instrumental in bringing the railroad through Johnson County and largely responsible for the economic growth of the region. The Civil War brought hard times to Holden. Raids perpetuated by Union soldiers, Confederate partisans, and bushwhackers almost entirely halted the growth of the town. By the end of the war, the town was practically dead, home to only 16 families. By 1870, though, the town was on the rebound. You can see how that population jumped back up and hit 2,000 by 1880 and has been very consistent at that level ever since. Centerview was originally called Graham, and under that name was laid out in 1865, named after Samuel Graham, the original owner of the town site. Post office was changed to Centerview in 1868. Population has never been very large, started as 227 there in 1880, and has basically been the same, down to 189, down from one of its highest of 267 in 2010. Not a lot to see here in Centerview, a couple old buildings, and they do have a nice cemetery.
We're finishing up the trip. We're going to connect with US 50. That's going to be the terminus here of 58. Pretty interesting day. Some really unique and different towns from some larger cities, even not large city, but what we'd consider a large city on this channel. At the beginning, it had some cool historical stuff to some very small ones at the end here. So I really enjoyed it. It's fun to just pick a random road and go explore it and see what historical places you can find along the way. If you're interested in what goes beyond here, like into the next town, Warrensburg, I've done a whole series of US 50. I've done it from East Coast to West Coast, every town along the way. And so I definitely passed through this part in my US 50 series of Missouri last year. And so if you're interested, you can check out that.
Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end of that video. And since you're here, let me tell you a little bit more about the extras on the channel. One of the first things you can do is become a member. There are 3 levels of support. There's supporter, producer, and executive producer levels. All 3 have different levels of fun incentives and perks. If you haven't done so, please check out travelwiththewiseguy.com. There are lots of extras on there to explore. One of them is merchandise. We have Travel with the Wise Guy coffee mugs, Death Go Round t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and all sorts of fun things to show your support of this channel. Also on the website is a custom Google map. I've dropped pins in every place I've visited and linked the episode to each location. This seems to be a very popular feature for many of you. Also, sign up for my free newsletter that goes out about once a month. There are all sorts of links and tidbits on this page, old videos, podcasts, and just about everything I can think of I throw on the website. Get all that information on travelwiththewiseguy.com.